Welcome everyone. We're going to kick off on this webinar, how to double your people's weekly learning time. Today we're going to talk about how to get ready for a learning platform launch, how to build a great learning brand, and loads of other things. I'm here with Rebecca today, who is head of people at Charlton Morris. Could you tell us a little bit more about what you do and what also Charlton Morris does, just so that we get a quick intro?
Yeah, sure. So we're an executive search business. So we work within medical devices, life science and industrial recruiting on behalf of clients kind of internationally. So I'm head of people. So I'm responsible for anything from training, development, HR and culture and wellbeing. So yeah, a big part of my role was kind of launching CM Learning or HowNow, our HowNow platform earlier this year. It's the first time we've ever had an LMS. We've typically done everything manually. We've had a handbook. We do everything face to face. So it's quite an important thing for us to make sure that we found a platform where we could allow consultants to continuously develop and something that we could use to engage the team with as well.
Great. Thank you, Rebecca, for this quick intro. And I'm Lulu. I'm head of CS here at HowNow. I was also involved quite a bit with the implementation of CM Learning. So yeah, let's just dive right in. Quite often, how well day one of launching a new learning platform goes, it's usually about everything you do before this day one. So how did you make sure you prepared for the launch at Charlton Morris, and what did you do to make sure as well that you were hitting the ground running? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so we knew it was important to launch it properly. The majority of our team are billing consultants. So anyone that's ever worked in recruitment, or I suppose with any kind of salesperson, will know that if you're in a sales role, anything that's not going to make you immediate money in the short term, it's kind of difficult to get people bought into it. So it was really important that we did kind of have a plan to really engage people from day one. So in preparation, we went through it with all kind of the senior directors, got their buy-in, understood their concerns, made tweaks, kind of made sure that it was gonna work for the teams. Did the same with the managers as well. And then from there, we actually did a soft launch. So we had some newer starters that were joining the business, and we used that as an opportunity to trial CM Learning, get their feedback, and iron out any kinks in it before we kind of launched it to the rest of the company. As well as that, we knew that in terms of preparing for launch, we wanted to make sure it was as engaging as possible. So we tried to make sure we had a variety of content on the platform. So rather than just material for consultants to read through, so presentations or documents, we made sure there was video and there was alternative forms of content as well, so that when we did launch, there was a bit of excitement around it.
Mm-hmm. And just to go back a little bit to what you just said, and to give a little bit more context as well, could you explain what were the main pain points before launching this platform? So I guess one, that you said you didn't have an LXP, so that's quite clear you didn't have anything. But could you just tell us a little bit more about these pain points that you figured out in the different departments?
Yeah, so we were kind of in the process of rebranding and redoing our training anyway, because we changed a few processes and how we worked. But I suppose we always kind of focused on training new starters. So they would go through kind of a 5 to 6 week training program. But then we have a lot of people in the business that, want to develop, want to continuously kind of learn. And although we had ad hoc advanced sessions, there wasn't much content there to allow people to continuously develop within their role. So we knew that we wanted to have a platform that was there for the new starters, but also allowed people that have been with the business for a couple of years to learn, but also for those people to be able to contribute as well. Mm-hmm. So I think I suppose in terms of pain points, it was that lack of training for people that had been with the business for a bit of time. Also the lack of kind of variety. Like I said, everything was done out of a handbook. We know that people learn in different ways, and we kind of always done it in one set way, one set process. And just having everything centralized as well across the business. So I suppose they were the key pain points and the key things that we knew that we wanted to get from the platform.
Okay, super. Thank you for this bit of context. And now to go back to a little bit more around how you prepared for the launch, etc. There is a funny saying that says, if a tree falls in the woods and nobody's there to hear it, then does it actually make a sound? So that's, I guess, a good metaphor for launching a new platform, because if nobody knows it actually exists, then it will probably have very little impact on learning in the business. So how did you make sure to create this noise about HowNow, about CM learning and around launch? And what tools did you use to get these people, all of your people, logging in and using the platform?
Yeah, so we set out almost a calendar of events. We knew that we needed to make noise about it. I think what you just said there is so accurate. We knew that we needed to kind of get people engaged with it from the beginning. So obviously that was a big part of us engaging with the managers and the directors to begin with, and the newer starters. But what we did was set out a calendar of events. So there was a short training session at 12 o'clock every day. So it was out of prime business hours when people would be making calls. At the same time as we launched HowNow, we also launched another platform. So we were doing training on these two things each day. There'd be just a short kind of burst of information about the platform. So there was a bit of an introduction, getting people set up on it. Then we did more of an in-depth session. We introduced them to linking it with Slack. And then did some more refresher training sessions at the end. And then even a month later, we did the same. So we continued to make noise from when we first launched it to even a couple of months afterwards, because we wanted to make sure that people were still engaging. Slack was key for us. We do a lot of communications over Slack. We don't really use email internally. But at the moment, any documents that are sent, well, not at the moment, but prior to this, any documents that were sent internally was sent over Slack. Any communication happened over Slack. So it was about making sure that everyone could see how much easier this would make things as well. They haven't got to scroll back through Slack channels. They could find something quite simply just by even being on Google at the time and having it down the right-hand side, or being on Slack, or just typing in the search bar on CM Learning. So we tried to we integrated those tools into the training, and really just focused on how much easier it would make their life to use those as well. So we definitely did find it useful to have a schedule of short training sessions that weren't going to interrupt their day too much, but also weren't going to be too detrimental on ours as well. It was just 12 o'clock every day, like a 20-minute session.
And it's so important as well what you're saying about not only focusing this calendar of events for the launch, but also making sure that it continues afterwards, because otherwise you could lose the momentum of the excitement of launch, and this is a big event, but it's making sure that it keeps coming up with new information, new use cases, perhaps new productivity hacks and ways to find the learning accessibly easily on the platform. So that's super important. And also, I think most people, they think that learning engagement comes down to just the individual learners or the individual employees, but other departments, leaders and C-suite are also part of that most of the time, because although, we don't really want this top-down kind of learning approach anymore, because that's way old school, people still need to lead by example, and that's quite powerful. So maybe you could tell us a little bit more about how other departments and senior figures use the platform and how you've been able to encourage that and the impact that it has been, perhaps.
Yeah, so we're quite a marketing-led business, and consultants now are quite engaged with the marketing team and the content they push out as well, particularly because it helps them with their business development as well. But what really helped us once we'd launched CM Learning, the marketing team were brilliant. Our senior marketing exec, Dan, who manages all of our kind of internal and external content, started to just use CM Learning to publish content. So therefore, people were having to go onto CM Learning to access any of the marketing material and marketing content he was putting out. So we kind of scrapped any of the other comms channels through Slack and just everything went through that. I think that was really important because the marketing team are a team that everyone engages with. So they all had to log on to CM Learning to access what Dan was giving them. And obviously they didn't have to log on. We all know it's really easy to do so. They just clicked on the link. But getting Dan and the rest of the marketing team brought in was really important in the rollout. And then managers as well. So we've also got recently, we've had one of the managers in the teams has started rolling out his own almost mini program to their division. So every week there's a different topic around D&I that's posted. So he's now engaging with it, and we're seeing much more engagement within that particular division as a result. So yeah, I think getting those other people within the company and engaged and bought in was critical, really, because at the start we did seem there was a little bit of a gap between us saying what it was and actually the managers either logging on, engaging with it. But once they did, and once we'd kind of ironed out those kinks, it ran a lot smoother.
Yeah, and hopefully it can go to the different departments after that, because if one department is performing and you can see that there is so much high engagement, then potentially other managers are going to kind of want to follow this path as well, just to support and help their teams, which is great. And I also wanted to ask you about your CM Learning brand, because obviously a learning brand gives people something to buy into. It builds a bit of credibility. It creates a better connection between what you're trying to achieve and your people. Of course, the list go on. But how did you build the brand itself? And how did you make sure that it tied into the brand values, and how you made sure that it would actually resonate with your people?
Yeah, so we've got quite a strong brand outside of CM Learning anyway, so it was quite easy for us to kind of translate that onto the platform. Everything across the business is very kind of aligned in terms of brand. We're very values focused as a business, and tying the platform into that really helped as well. As an example, two of our values are collaborative and pioneering. And one of the things that we loved about this platform is that we could allow people to collaborate. It allows us to share content and best practice across the company, so that knowledge isn't just stored within individual teams. It also encourages employees to contribute ideas and be pioneering, and come up with new ways of working that they've had success with. So we found it quite easy to tie that into what our values are, and being quite values led anyway, that worked quite seamlessly. So yeah, I think in terms of building the brand, it just came off the back of that, really, and it was quite an easy transition, I think.
And how has it helped in getting people up to speed quicker, do you think, with this learning brand, these values, and the launch of the platform?
Well, I think because everybody in the business is really bought into those values anyway, knows that is something that we take very seriously.
Yeah.
It's really helped because people know that this is where they'll collaborate. This is where they're able to kind of share ideas with others. And this is the kind of thing that we value as a business. So just, I think the fact that we put such an emphasis on our values anyway really allowed for the teams to understand why we were doing what we were doing, to understand the benefit that it would have to them as well. So I think they could see the benefit because of kind of how we'd built the brand. I think they could see the benefit that it would have to them and their development.
Yeah. And that's definitely helped them in one, as you say, being collaborative, also making sure that they test things out within their department, they share the information so that it's easily accessible. So yeah, that's really helpful. And also lastly, I wanted to get your take on how people can get the most out of their learning platform of CM Learning, because there's often kind of a sense almost of pressure around showing ROI, or maybe showing that people are really using the tech that the business is paying for. So how have you maximized the value and functions of the CM Learning of the platform, and what advice would you give to others that are watching today?
Yeah, so I think in terms of how we've maximised it, we've very much, like I said earlier, it's continuously making noise for one, and working closely with managers to do that, because what we initially launched has changed a lot since then. We've made tweaks, things have had to change in terms of what would work for the managers, what would work for the consultants, and that essentially needs to come from the managers, and getting them bought into that and ensuring that it's fit for purpose has helped us really maximise that and maximise engagement. Utilising as well the evaluation at the end of training programs. So at the end of everyone who's completed a training program with us, they complete an evaluation to feedback on kind of their learning. They're assessed throughout, which I think is then useful for the managers as well, to see how somebody's progressing within training. But yeah, it quickly did become apparent that though we showed the managers how to use the platform, there was a lot more that needed to be done. So even up to just a couple of weeks ago, we're still doing refresher training with them, and making sure that they are using the platform to then encourage the newer starters to also do that. So re-engaging managers has been important in maximising the function of the platform, and also the evaluation and the assessments as well, and really utilising that and making sure that what we're doing is working.
Yeah, and I just have a couple of questions on that. So you're saying that you're working quite closely with the manager. So do you have like a monthly kind of chat with them and they can feedback what they're working on, or does it usually come from the people team who are saying, okay, these are the objectives and here is what you kind of need to plan out for the quarter?
Yeah, so rather than kind of monthly, well, I essentially have monthly catch-ups with the directors anyway, and on the back of that, on the back of when we've got newer starters coming in, it's just kind of the people team keeping an eye out, I suppose. It's me and Chloe as well, just listening to if there's any needs, if the new starter's bringing something up, or if a manager is saying that they've they're not sure what someone's meant to be doing. It's kind of a bit more ad hoc on the back of that. So it's just responding to what they're feeding back, essentially, but not so structured as the
Yeah. And also you were saying you're getting feedback from your learners, from your people, after every kind of program. How are you finding that? How do you do this? Do you use a form? Do you use the platform? How do you usually do that?
Yeah, we add it as we just add it as a nugget. I think we do it as an assessment off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But it's essentially just open questions for them to just feedback on how they found it, how easy they found it to use. And it's been useful because there has been some kind of suggestions that have come up which have definitely changed the way in which we use it in the early stages. So I definitely recommend the training evaluation.
That's great. Well, thank you. And I have a final question for you, Rebecca, today. What's next? What are the next exciting plans for CM Learning?
Yeah, so we are currently hiring a learning and development manager, which will mean that somebody can be completely dedicated to training and CM learning, and they'll be able to dedicate a bit more time to focus even more on engagement, because even though we know that we've got quite good engagement, we still want to improve that a lot more as well. I think the next focus for us is getting some advanced content on there as well, because we've got bits of that at the moment, but as I mentioned earlier, that is a big reason we went with this platform, is we want continuous learning. So we kind of focused initially on induction training, on the initial training programs, but yeah, that's kind of the next phases, and to also use the channels and the skills a little bit more as well, and really kind of hone in on those, because I think there's so much potential with what we have there, but a lot to do.
Yeah, and obviously with the skills, then you would be able to identify any gaps and then therefore utilize that to create, to drive your learning strategy, which is creating new advanced program about the specific skills that are missing or perhaps can be improved or increased in the business. Well, thank you so much, Rebecca.